Welcome back to the Jewish Futurism Lab, where we unpack Torah, tech, and tomorrow. I'm your host, Mike Wirth, Jewish futurist, community artist, and design educator, coming to you from Crown Town, Charlotte, North Carolina. Today we are asking a simple but very deep question. What is the psychology of future thinking? With Shely Rachel Esses, a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified psychosexual therapist who brings together psychology, the body, and Jewish wisdom. This conversation moves through healing, relationships, and the inner conditions that make imagination possible. Let's get into it, y'all. All right, welcome back, friends, to the lab. Today, I'm excited to share an interview that I had with the amazing Shely Rachel Esses, a licensed marriage and family therapist, a Kabbalist, a mom, a wife, and a New Yorker, someone whose work sits at a fascinating intersection of psychology, embodied somatic healing, and Jewish wisdom. Because the future is not only something that we predict, as we say on the show, it is something that we build actively from inside, starting today. I've wanted to have Shely on because of the many conversations you're about to hear, where we explore all these ideas revolving around the future and human psychology. We're not just talking technological and cultural futures, but really getting to a deeply human question of how we become the people we are capable of becoming. How do we imagine a better future for ourselves as individual Jews, our relationships, and our larger community? And what gets in the way of that? Shely and I are thinking together about the psychology of the future. In psychology, there is a term, future self, which is the version of you that you imagine in 5, 10, or 20 years from now. How we picture that future self and how real that person feels to us quietly shapes our choices that we make right now here in the present. We'll talk about future orientation, the way we mentally project ourselves in time towards consider our impact on the world and our future descendants as we become ancestors one day. When that orientation is blocked by trauma or stress, the future can feel foggy or even closed off. When it opens, people can begin to feel agency again, a sense that they can participate in what some researchers call long-termism, caring about outcomes far beyond their own lifetime, which the opposite is short-termism. From a Jewish lens, this connects to teshuvah, right? The ongoing work of becoming who we are meant to be. It is not only about fixing the past, it is also about rehearsing different futures in our imagination and taking baby, tiny, small steps, concrete steps today to start building toward them. So, friends, without further ado, here's my interview with Shely Rachel Esses. Shall I refer to you as doctor?
No, not a
No.
doctor.
Okay.
I'm just Shely. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and certified psychosexual therapist, not a doctor.
Not a doctor. But you specialize in things like intimacy and relationships and trauma-informed care,
Yes.
from what I've read, and also nervous system regulation, which I am always interested in. And it sounds like you bring clinical psychology and somatic healing practices, and Jewish spiritual wisdom, frankly, which is a nice way to tie it all together. And that you work with both individuals and couples who move from a place of like intense stress and disconnection towards strong regulation, connection, purpose, and meaningful living. And you are trained in the Gottman method and relational life therapy. That's all wonderful. And we're so happy to have you here today. Dr. Shely, we're going to call you Dr.
It's my duty to then say, no, I'm not a doctor, but yes, I'm all of those things and I love what I do. And it's really an honor. I always say that, to work with people and help them see themselves in the light and give them hope.
Baruch Hashem. That's wonderful to hear. You should say no, but I do play one on TV. That's always the best to do.
That's funny. That's great. I do feel like I'm a little bit of an actress.
Yeah. Fantastic. And just we want to kind of know some basics about you and your how you grew up. Like your Jewish story.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was very little, I used to call myself half and half. My father and the paternal side of my family, they are Syrian, and even with lineage, even from India, so Jewish, Indian, and Syrian, Turkey, Lebanon, eventually making their way to Israel. So that Mizrahi fire is very much a part of who I am. And then on my maternal side, they are very deeply Ashkenazi. My grandfather was such a cool guy. He was from Vilna. He was like a box. He actually sang for Stalin, and that's helped save him. And
Wow.
my bubby survived Auschwitz. She was one of the youngest female survivors of Auschwitz, and she was originally from Czechoslovakia. They moved to Canada. Both my parents, my grandparents, all moved to Canada, and that's how my parents met. I was raised in Toronto. I spent a lot of time in Israel, in summers, and then on trips. Then eventually, I lived in Israel. I grew up modern Orthodox, and on my own, I just have continued to explore the depths of Torah from all levels of Pardes, Pshat, Remez, Drash, Kabbalah, and I'm invested in Torah studies, and I love all things Torah and Judaism.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how in your life did like the your pursuit of studying the human mind and psychology connect to Torah? And you bring a lot of worlds together. Can you talk a little bit about that genesis?
Sure, and you know what? It's 100% attributed to my ADHD because um, I call it one of my superpowers, the weaving of all things.
Beautiful.
Honestly, it's a pretty simple story. I was partying in Jerusalem. I finished doing Sherut Lumi, which is national service, and I was like, okay, I feel like I should probably go to school. I looked at the majors, and everything was like boring, boring, boring. And then I went to psychology. I'm like, okay, I could do psychology. And I mean, who doesn't? Everyone like takes at least a couple courses in psychology. So I did. I enjoyed it. I followed through. I did a whole 4 years of psychology. And then I also minored in Jewish studies as well, which was awesome. So it kind of was there from the get go. And then when looking for a master's program, again, I'm looking through the list. Everything was like, no, no, ew, ew, ew. And then I read marriage and family therapy, and just my soul was like, this is it, Shely. I felt it. And very similarly, in year 2 of my master's program, they were like, okay, it's time for y'all to pick an internship. And I'm like, okay, here we go again. I'm like, I applied literally to anything and everything. Because I was Shomer Shabbat, I would always include that. Oh, by the way, I can never work on Saturday. A lot of doors were shut on me. One person, Dr. Rosara Teresi, she saw me for who I am. She's a sex therapist. She has like a sex therapy institute, and she took me on as an intern. So right away, my actual therapeutic career started as a sex therapist. And then on my own, I was still continuing learning Torah on my own with chavrutas, like little groups, and online reading a lot of books. So I to bring it all together, I saw very clearly how the that well, I actually took several classes called like Torah psychology. And I always wanted to make my own version of Torah psychology. And I do. I have my handle on Instagram is called Torah Psychology. And if we actually read the Torah, we absolutely can see like psychological stories happening of mind, body, and soul, these like deep journeys that are honestly such an entertaining book to read as well. And then viewing it from a psychological, spiritual body perspective, you can learn a lot of good lessons.
That's amazing. And one of the reasons really why I wanted to talk to you, is because you do take this amazing approach to Torah, and then you filter it through your profession. I want to minimize it and just call it your profession. It seems like it's really your life's passion. um, I'm equally looking at Torah through the creative lens and the artistic lens, and I often refer to Torah as like a design brief for the Jewish people, right? It like gives us the instructions about how to really manifest a beautiful life, right, and bring light. Um, so, you know, what is unique about Jewish psychology, and when you take a class like uh, psychology, do you say psychology of Torah, or what was it called?
Torah psychology.
Okay, what does that curriculum look like? The syllabus, you're sitting down and you're just like, whoa, how'd that square up for you?
Well, firstly, I just want to say that your work as an artist, and I've been watching what you've been doing, is incredible. How really Torah can be utilized in every single field, and what you're doing is amazing. Um, and to come
Thank
back
you,
to
dear.
my, yeah, absolutely. To come back to my, how I'm, what is unique about it, or my syllabus. And so, to be truly honest, it's understanding the soul and understanding the attributes of the soul and the emotional principles of the soul and the different qualities of the soul that become behavior and become emotions, and how the soul operates in a body within the nervous system, or the lack of a connection with your soul, how that also can deeply affect your nervous system and the quality of your thoughts.
Yeah, holy smokes. Yeah. So, all right. So we're talking because I'm very interested in. I got this awesome book. Gosh, I'm not near my library, so I don't know the author, but it's a complete guide, Jewish guide to the soul, and it like has this diagram of
Wow.
the layers. Your neshama and your
Yes.
ruach, and the different parts of you. So, but it sounds like you're also talking about musar, right, and midot. Is that true?
Well, so like the sphero, the 10 emanations is the English word, are attributes of the soul, and the seven lower sphero, the attributes are like more lofty to our human experience, that are generosity and discipline and heart center, like balance, and then endurance, victory, gratitude, the foundation of who we are. And then like our, like when we talk about the lowest emanation, which is the kingdom, that really refers to our body. Like our body is the kingdom of our soul. So how do we treat our vessel, our body, human 101? And I break it down to like, how does a person eat? What is their nutrition? How do they move their body? I call it joyful movement. How do they silence their mind through meditation and mindfulness? And lastly, the fourth question I ask is, how do you guard your thoughts and speech? So there's a lot of different ways, just utilizing the different aspects that we have on understanding the soul, that actually translate into behavior, emotions, thought, etc. And then within the 5 levels of the soul, which are really important, to mention,
Yeah,
also help us understand how to evolve and to grow and to level up.
absolutely. I mean, uh, my journey started in Kabbalah, um, in my teshuvah, right? Because for many years I was not connected to Hashem in the way that I am now. And yeah, I've become very interested in. I don't know if you've seen. I've become interested in Musar and the Musar Center, and just the many teachings that are also overlapping with Kabbalah. So I love seeing the. I don't know if you've seen. There's like an infographic. It's a periodic table, and it's like the elements of making mensches. Have you seen this thing before? Uh, it's
No.
it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. But it's like periodic table as you would see in science class, but it has all of the midot, and it has all of the I guess emanations like imuna and
Wow.
tiferet and things like are in Musar. So um, it's like all it's your whole soul based on the elements, which I thought was such a cool way to look
That
at it.
is really cool. And Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg actually brings down the periodic table and the first words of the first parsha of Bereshit, how it corresponds to all of the elements, and it's literally built in. Um, like the physical scientific understanding of this world through the elements is then is how that itself is coded in into the Torah is like really genuinely blows my mind. And stuff like that is like, okay, so what are my expertise? Science is not my expertise. Psychology, the human mind, the human behavior, that became my expertise. So then it was like, okay, how am I looking for the codes within Torah that help healing, that bring upon remedy and relief. So that's also stuff that I'm looking for in the Torah and then bringing that out to my clients.
That's amazing. So, could I ask you, like, paint a picture of a session with a client who is approaching you with needs, psychological needs, and then they're also versed in Torah. How does that go in a scenario?
Well, I mean, like people really truly are all so unique, and that's it's hard for me to answer that question in regards to like how does the magic happen in this session. But at the at the end of the day, we we want to find each person's soul gift,
Mm,
soul shine. And even by asking them, like, how do you learn Torah? Do you like more of the
mm,
like midrash? Do you like more of the musar? Do you like more of the like halacha? And kind of ask them what their experience is with how they keep mitzvah. What mitzvah do you like? Which mitzvahs are really hard for you? Kind of finding what their strengths. And I think that that's a core feature is helping them find their strengths in who they are. And then I do usually also as like a assessment from Torah, we understand there's four elements: earth, fire, water, air. So we're also going to be looking at their strengths through that lens. If their soul is more of a water soul, more of a fire soul, more of an earth soul, more of an air soul, and then we can help from there understand more about them and what they're trying to do and where their weaknesses are and how to use their strengths to pull them up.
that's beautiful. That's your Mizrahi fire right there. Bringing all those, uh, I love how when you speak, you go from this kind of Western way of speaking, right? Like objectively speaking, like it's here, this object we can look at, but then you get right inside of it at the same time. And I'm going to attribute that to your Mizrahi side of your family because my Mizrahi family, I claim it. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, cool. I love how you just worded that. That's very cool. Yeah. And at the also I like to weave both Eastern and Western because that is also a huge part of what's happening is that we have global awareness. So to find the gems
Mm,
everywhere.
right, right. To just have that conglomerated perspective. That's what I love about the mosaic
Mm.
of Jews around the world, right? Is that there's many ways to do it, but you always recognize the core, right? The spine of it is always true. Um, so I'm curious because we talk a lot about the future on this show, and I've talked a lot about how the Jewish people we just have a built-in futurism, and one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about as a psychologist is really just like uh, people warn me sometimes, like don't stay in the future; it brings anxiety, But as a like all the things we're talking about require future thinking in order to achieve, right? It, I feel like when I do future thinking, it puts me in the present so much more than maybe historical thinking sometimes. Um, so, what's your read on that? Am I crazy? Am I doing strange things, or is this kind of work of exploring what's to come, or at least preparing ourselves, right, for it? Um, is that healthy?
When you were speaking, maybe I was like zoning very deeply into what you were saying and your experience of it because something popped into my head when I was little. Like I used to read books of what they thought 2026 would be. I don't know exactly what year, but yeah, you get the point. And we are actually somehow in the future because how fast things have moved and how rapid everything is. We are like, that was the thought that came into my mind. We've accelerated to a point where we've begun that future. So, not thinking about how much fast, like this speed is actually probably like a disadvantage. So, if you are spending a lot of time thinking about the future, which I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of like prophetic thinking was future thinking. We also have to remember to ground ourselves and have lots of present moments throughout your day in your inner world, in your inner life. That's for sure. But when trying to create like a plan, a futuristic like thinking and being ahead of things, it's a beautiful, wonderful initiative.
Thank you. Okay, so this is very validating. I feel you've completely made the show, and everything I've been doing worthwhile. I'm curious about, like, when you work with clients, because you have to paint the picture or help them envision themselves in the future being, um, reaching a higher level of health, right? Um, how do you set people up to be futuristic in their thoughts?
Well, I'm even gonna point out how important it is like like I will often ask people, where do you see yourself in 2 years from now? Even more so, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? When a person struggles to envision themselves at all in 2 years from now, that's actually problematic. That's not a very good growth sign. It's a very stagnant, stuck feature, I guess, in what's going on inside of them. We are goal setting people, setting a goal and then I'm a huge fan of baby steps. Like on a scale there's this cute little modality called like the magic ball. I'll say, okay, I have this magic ball, play around with me. What do you like? If you could see the future, don't hold back, go ape, allow yourself to see the most magical, amazing future. What do you see? And I make them paint it out like so detailed as they possibly can. Like, okay, so that's your 10. Where are you now? Oh, some people are like, like maybe a 3. I'm like, okay. So how do we get to 3.5? So we're building efficiently, and I'm even happy to use the word slowly, um, in order to achieve that. But we can be in the present moment, but with like, I mean, we can't remain in the present moment. That's the point as well. We have to be moving one foot at a time forward. Netzach and Hod are the right and left foot. So we take the right foot and then the left foot and we keep moving forward.
One step at a time. I want to zoom out real quick, right? Because as you're talking here, I'm thinking, the Jewish people, like, we live in this terrible loop, unfortunately, of trauma and then uh, resilience, right? We'll call it. And some of us have gotten out of it, by assimilating, right, and things like that. But gosh, that doesn't sound like a healthy psychology. But yet
No.
we build and are hopeful and things like that. I feel like you got some kind of wisdom in there. How is that kind of triangulating between our psychology, Torah, right, and other things, right, in our lives?
Wow. Well, that's really great. I mean, yeah, this is where things get difficult because we're talking about epigenetics. And after October 7th, there was a point where I was extremely angry because typically epigenetics start to loosen up and become more healthy after the third generation. So my kids are the fourth generation, but the level of nervous system dysregulation I felt the weeks after October 7th, so here we go again. And I've been on high alert and just, I mean, yeah, that's it. The fourth generation. No, we're back deeply in that loop. We actually never successfully made it out. And what we're seeing is, I mean, it's not like shocking that a lot of Jewish people have gut issues, and the gut brain axis is so important. Our happy hormones are actually made in our gut. So if it's like IBS, intolerances, just like anxieties, different things, like that's like a strong feature of the experience. So working with the nervous system, with breathing is really, really helpful. Can you remind me of the question?
Uh, just how well you're doing great, right? Like, so these are the somatic things, right, that you've talked
Mhm.
about, and just the psychology triangulation of how do we find this balance as a
Yes.
people collectively? Yep.
Well, it's actually quite metaphysical, and that's really the honest truth. Being able to utilize logic when it's necessary, we love logic, but then to also being able to connect to that metaphysical, because the word for hope in Hebrew is tikva, and in tikva you see right in the middle there's kav, which means a line, like a cord. So that right there inside of hope is this cord, this umbilical cord straight to God that exists inside of you. You have to be able to metaphysically connect to this cord of hope that surpasses the most evil things and the most craziest things. And like, you have to be able to get spiritual. You have to be able to get into the nature. You have to be able to, I mean, I'm like such a Purim person. It's like on Purim, you're drinking a little bit, maybe that's what helps. And actually get to the point where you're having this like metaphysical hug, embrace, connection with God. I mean, on a daily practice, just doing hitbodedut, going out into the nature or wherever you have a chance and actually having a conversation with the creator, with Hashem. And like, even if you don't have hope, literally say, Hashem, I need more hope. And, on Pesach, on Passover, matzah is known as the food of Emunah, the food of faith, the bread of faith. So that too is a hack that on Pesach, while we're eating matzah on the Seder night, we actually ask Hashem, okay, please strengthen my faith muscle. Strengthen my faith muscle. I don't have any faith. I need more faith. So constantly being in awareness that we need hope, we need faith that go beyond this like logical matrix. We have to almost rise above it. And it's an incredible, almost unbelievable experience that the Jewish people have encoded in their DNA to be hopeful and to have faith and deep trust in the process and in the creator ultimately, in Hashem.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I've been working lately. You just made me think of I've been doing so. I'm in graphic design and
Mhm.
user experience design. So we do a lot of studying, and a lot of psychology comes into what we do. Gestalt, heuristics, things like that. Um, so you know, one of the things I've been using is my language to study Shabbat and to study Jewish ritual. Uh, so I've just been thinking about like, uh, you know, uh, how there's a certain amount of creative space in Judaism that's been designated for us. Uh, and I've visualized it as like this kind of like a dartboard, a circle type thing, or a sandbox, if you will, but that the outer rim is the halak, right, the law, and then slightly inward is the minhag, right, is our chosen tradition. We don't do animal sacrifice anymore, but we have minhag to help with that. Um, And then there's this like free space, right? Where it's like, what can we do with ourselves, our families, our communities, our peoples, right? Our minds, right? Our relationships, all those things we have control over, actually.
Mhm.
Um, and that's really our design space, right? And that like you can do a lot of stuff. It's fun to be creative and jam, so to speak, with the ritual and Jewish culture, but that if you're aware of the minhag and then the halacha, right, like that all of a sudden now that, like, for me as a designer, that's the most empowering place to be. I feel psychologically the most centered when I can know the boundaries, right? Because I want to jam, I want to hit notes and paint strokes that I don't normally do because we're having fun. But if I could then use that time effectively and land in a place with good, solid, law formed, minhag formed Jewish tradition that makes my life better and others around me better, right? And doesn't harm. Wow, right?
I
So
particularly
yeah,
I
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I particularly like the minhagim that are, or more of the like structure and routine that are very somatic, washing the hands, putting our hands over our face for certain blessings, actually like even breathing, like I mean, we should optimally be breathing well while praying. And really like humming and singing and dancing, that's so woven in. And then having it like, you know, being a Jew means being tapped into the calendar. So one like the Hebrew calendar, and in every month or in most months, there's actually going to be more than one ritualistic day where we are, using our rhythmic understanding of what we need, that's also very seasonally attached. Like in different seasons our bodies actually need different thing. Like in Hanukkah time it literally says we should sleep more. That's the time of the winter. That is like the month of Kislev is associated to dreams and sleeping. So it's all so plugged in. I also wanted to go back to like the question before, or maybe it's just all relevant. I don't want to not mention Rav Soloveitchik's. I think he does the best of talking about suffering. We
Please.
do have to, or as a therapist, I invite people to be like ACT is acceptance commitment therapy. Let's just accept at certain points that we are suffering and that we're upset and that there's negative emotions and there's difficulties and there's hardships, and maybe like I have some people crying being like, I hate that I'm mad at God. I hate
Mhm.
that I'm so, I want to just
Yeah, they
scream at God.
feel right.
Yeah,
They feel like that. Yeah, they feel like I should be abiding and be obedient, but we are Israel, right? We are meant to struggle.
yeah, yeah. And so I welcome that. I open that. Like I'm like, well, great. You have a relationship. I feel like becoming a mom really changed a lot for me. I'm like, it's actually an honor when my kid feels safe enough to completely lose it with me. So it's like it's okay. You can
Mhm.
completely lose it, and that actually comes back to the nervous system. When a person is dysregulated and they lose access to their prefrontal cortex, they're oftentimes we're spewing garbage from that point. So to but like when you have a close enough friend and you feel comfortable enough to do that in front of them, that makes a friendship stronger. So kal v'chomer, obviously allowing yourself to completely surrender to your physiological state and
Mhm.
just allowing yourself to be real with Hashem is also really therapeutic and medicine, and it strengthens the relationship, not vice versa. So it's okay. Like sometimes we're suffering, sometimes we're really, really struggling, and we can also not avoid it, actually cruise in the struggle in order to understand it better and to have that deeper connection and conversation with Hashem.
Oh, you make me think of the. I grew up in Long Island and spent many years in the ocean and lifeguarded like many teenagers in my neighborhood did. And they teach you the first thing is when there's a rip current, is that
Mm.
like you shouldn't try to fight the current, that you should actually like lift your legs and kind of get comfy and just be buoyant, right? And let it take you. That when you're in the mess, right? Like metaphorically, bring your legs up, right? And just like be calm, be buoyant, and stay in the flow, right? And just use the time while you can. You can't go anywhere. So, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's exactly it. And then I'll like I'm very, Torah storytelling, and that reminds me, and how I tell all my clients, like we kind of go over from the beginning the story of like Adam and Eve.
mm,
Eve went with it. Eve was in the ocean, and there's a midrash from the Al Sheikh that when God, speaks both to Eve and Adam, and first Hashem is like, okay, Chava, Eve, like, what happened? She's like, well, the snake drove me crazy,
mm,
and I like succumbed, and yeah, I did. I ate it. And then Hashem asks Adam, what happened? She's like, oh, she made me do it. And and the midrash goes that Hashem said, I created Chava to be like that, to be like the moon.
mm,
And she's going to have her cycle. She's going to have these like emotional experiences. And then it happens to be Hashem was like, and you're to Adam, you're more like the sun. You have to be more stable. And so, like, there is a lesson there, like, definitely for women who are more cyclical. And then I don't want to say, okay, men, they have to be this stable figure all the time.
mm,
It's then we can look at all of the other patriarchs and the stories of the masculine roles, how we see that how they have completely lost it. Even Asav. Asav at the end, and I'm specifically bringing Asav in because he's such a massive player in the end of times too, futuristic thinking.
mm,
Asav hopefully is going to return and be like this big brother, like, well, yeah, he's supposed to be this big brother force that comes and totally repents. And that's part of the human story. We are in it, deeply, deeply in a human body, deeply with a nervous system that gets completely shut off. And bringing that back to ADHD and autism and all of that, we are the neurodivergent mind is a futuristic mind. There's so many people saying that ADHD autistic minds are already like future coded. And we see that their nervous systems are a lot more sensitive. And I think that there's a beautiful truth there to learn to be so completely human. And it's more about the repair and growing from our genuine and honest meltdown, shutdowns, experiences, triggers, trauma, whatever it is.
mm, mm. Yeah, no, I'm happy you went into this space. I know you've shared that you're neurodivergent. I am too. And yeah, like it's hard in those moments to not feel like guilty and like something's wrong. Like why am I not happy now? Why am I not connecting to what this person's? You feel very like dispresent, and yeah, I love that you frame it as a superpower. I really I feel like that. Thank God we got into fields where our types of brains can be supported and feel like we could thrive, right, and contribute. Um, you know, the when we're thinking about just the idea of like, do you think there's a certain sense of escapism in future thinking? If we are, you're talking about like the epigenetics and things like that. I'm fascinated by that. I'm going to dig deep on that. So thank you. Um, that like, because October 7th occurred and going back 4 generations to what was a previous trauma, of epic proportions, we've not escaped that. So, you know, Jewish futurism, as I'm investigating it, is not something that's new, but is like being more codified now. Like uh, uh, often get accused, like, are you just putting Jewish on futurism? Is this just this, you just, and it's like, no, no, right? Like, uh, so yeah, I'm curious, like, uh, is the escapism part uh, of it? Like, does it help regulate us? I'm asking 5 questions. I'm sorry.
No, but I'm following. It's funny. I have sometimes when I have ADHD clients and they're like, okay, I'm like all over the place. I'm like, I am following. Like I have that type of mind. Well, okay, number one, once upon a time, my brother-in-law showed me this book of how the Beta Mikdash would look like with AI and with like, high level technology. And I was like, whoa, like that's unbelievable. And that was already like 6 years ago. And I was also almost scared of it. Like, and I would say, because again, how fast this is all going. Now it's like, oh, of course we need to think like this. And I'm so happy people have been on top of it. So here's the thing, like in our prophetic books, and well, like the whole Torah can be viewed as then it was, is, and will be. So within the Jewish framework, God's name means was, is, will be. Time is not linear. And within the Torah and specifically prophecy, it talks a lot about what the future will look like. So we're just like playing that game too. In regards to, I think it depends person to person. Because originally when I was thinking about AI, high level tech, it actually made me really afraid. And then if my nervous system is feeling afraid, staying in reality is really helpful. Um, Assurance, like someone who's very afraid wants to be more in the present moment, connecting to all the senses in their body and bringing them back to where they are in time and space. But we kind of want to get to a place where it's not scary. And I think that also needs to happen. We need to demystify these like weird elements of AI and technology, because you could see everything as good as something can be is as light and awesome as dark and evil and weird things can be. So it's not going anywhere. It's certainly not going anywhere where there's no way around it. We at this point, right? So let's focus on the light elements, the good aspects, and the good qualities. Like literally, how could AI and technology help us in the Beit HaMikdash? How can AI and technology assist us in all of our Jewish practices that will actually make our lives better? Because if we look at prophecies, things don't even make sense. I think it was like, well, now actually we would understand it. In one prophecy, I can't remember, it talks about though how wine will be like dozens of barrels at a time. Back in the day, they were like, how's that possible? We're stepping on grapes and it takes a very long time. But now we see that we can have lots and lots and lots of wine because of the machinery. So that is a good thing. Like there's nothing wrong with it. So like can we focus on the good qualities of it too, to almost balance out the fear and put in enjoyment and hope?
Yeah, and one thing I talk about a lot in my future world building classes is there's this Greek phrase telos, which means to what end, and it's the question we always ask when designing, right? It's the question in the golem story, right? Is like, okay, we have this tech, but like to what end? Like what do we really want from it? And I think that right there, we have to then be future thinking. So it sounds like, and everywhere I've seen, and of course I'm biased because I'm always looking for futuristic stuff in the Torah and whatnot, but that we've always had this inherent, and from a psychological standpoint, this inherent anticipation built into Judaism, right? Like,
I mean, I have such a good one. If the Geula, redemption, is a cosmic Shabbat, how would we do anything if it wasn't for AI? Like it seems
there it
like
is.
we're going to need technology to actually create this cosmic Sabbath. And like we can interpret it in 100 different ways, but it seems like it's all leading to this point. And I mean, I've also have understood that the Tower of Babel wasn't really this like tower reaching up to the sky, rather like what are they doing now? Like they're creating these data centers, kind of like this like
Uh,
data center,
mm,
but it was being manipulated and the AI, let's say the technology of the time, wasn't being used for the right reasons. And I think that's what it's going to come down to. So the fact that it's here and it's out there, we need to be infusing the right intentions and light and direction into the future, into how technology and AI are going to play its role, and then also how we're going to sync that up as our bodies with like our nervous system in our bodies. Like people say like, okay, so like a human body who's not used to making, let's say, a lot of money, you want to then train your nervous system how to make a lot of money, how to receive. Okay, like that's not like natural necessarily for all people. Maybe they were big givers, maybe they grew up in poverty. So you literally have to train your body and your nervous system. So too, like how do we train our bodies to feel safe and comfortable in this rapidly fast moving world of just like futuristic differences?
Mm. And when have you ever met somebody who's like too future oriented and you feel like they're not well connected to the present?
Totally, all the time. All the time. I think that that's a massive issue. And again, we want to be in reality. There's a difference between planning and setting goals and understanding what the future is looking like, and even having like a download of something from the future. But like we're living the majority, or we should be living the majority of our lives in the moment as often as we can. But that's a very different experience. Like of using your thinking, using your imagination, but to a point. What was that Greek word you used?
Telos.
Telos. So I think that that would apply too.
Mm,
Like we are using our imagination and planning ahead. But like for instance, I know some people, they're planning for Armageddon, but
mm.
that's become their whole life. They no longer are living in the moment. And that's really sad because there's so much every single day is Moda'ani lefanecha. Thank God that I woke up and I have today
Right.
to, be here in this world today.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And it's like, yeah, I said Mode I need this morning as well. And it's always such a futuristic prayer, but just for the next 24 hours, right? Um, I think that's amazing. So, wow, we're doing great job here, like weaving in all these contemporary, like fundamentally changing technologies and whatnot in our space. Uh, let's talk a little bit about relationships and partnerships and things like that. That is greatly challenged in this day and age. How are you kind of like using your triangulation, as I keep calling it, right, of somatic practice, psychological study, and then Jewish expertise to get folks like, because there's kind of the old school way, right, of like, find go to the matchmaker. It's hope that Beshert comes your way, right, and that life is great. But today with apps and even AI and things like that, we're in such a different space as far as love and affection and relationships. Yeah, please give us the skinny on that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start by like bringing in the tech into the relationships. Like already for 4 years, this topic is big in like the sex therapy world of how these like not real people, robots, very, very realistic robots are coming into the relationship sphere. Not only are they like people like having sex, they're actually in relationship. There is a movie that's already out. I can't remember if it's Ryan Reynolds. I think so. Where he's actually dating a doll. Like seriously. And we see in different places and
Wow.
people are getting married to inanimate objects and dolls and stuff like that. And it's making its way to North America and like the Western world. So that's where tech is playing in. And I think that that owns in a very big conversation of loneliness. And I think we can also talk about existential loneliness. Again, Rav Soloveitchik actually talks about this like deep yearning, this love sickness for Hashem that nobody can put their finger on because we're so close to the finish line that like there's this like deep yearning that hurts so badly. of like wanting to be close to Hashem, and it's like not being totally fulfilled, even in a very meaningful relationship. And possibly people are like getting that confused, like they can't put their finger on like, why can't I just feel whole? Um, so between like these like robots, people also just living longer, right? I was just talking about dental pain. People like dentists are God sent, man. Like people would probably die quite early from like a tooth infection. So yeah, that's just reiterating my point that we're living a lot longer. So monogamy now is like long, 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 long. And there's not enough like retreats even or education and like support to help couples refall in love with each other and deal with much longer term monogamy. And Torah, it did change, right? Like we did see obviously that some of our patriarchs were not monogamous. They had, well, only the men were had a plegesh, a concubine. And like it did change. It did go back to no, that's not really accepted. Monogamy is the number one. And we actually see that Rivka and Yitzchak, their names with gematria are basar echad, one flesh. If you do the gematria of Rivka and Yitzchak, so they are one body and one flesh. And in the actual Torah, the first time, and I think the only time, where sex is had for pleasure, for fun, is with Rivka and Yitzchak. So the place in the Torah where sex is happening for fun, for pleasure, is also where we see, like through gematria, that is the one flesh. That sex for pleasure, for fun, is the secret to a healthy marriage. For 120 years, 120 plus years, we should be engaging sexually in pleasure with our person and keeping that alive, keeping the eros, the sexuality alive. And people are like very far from that. We need to really have like serious integration, like learning therapy retreats that help couples. And in the sex therapy world, which is also cool, tech and the advancements of sex therapy now, the latest thing I'm hearing about is people are preparing for much better sex for a lot longer in life because they're coming out with just like advanced. I'm not even going to say like it's not pills, but like medicines and different stimulants, different things that help with, let's say, dryness, libido, different like health concerns, even like people who struggle with diabetes and their sexuality, like the way that the advanced medicine is coming out is helping to bring up sexual function. So now the sex therapy world is prepping to be helping people have sex for a lot longer in their lives. So we're seeing how that's also a very cool thing too.
And that's only like a generation old, right? The blue pill has just been around for that long, right? Since the 90s or 2000s for
Um,
men.
Viagra and
Yeah, like an
Cialis and all the
ED.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Well, so
Mm,
but now like it's not even like these like pharmaceuticals necessarily.
mm.
Also just like herbs,
Lifespan and
lifespan,
sure.
and just all across the board, the advancements in understanding the human body, even just knowing different lubrications that actually work because our understanding and knowledge of what works and what doesn't work, even just
Very
very simply
limited.
having better lubes. But that's also future thinking. And, because we're not there just yet, it like we're expecting this boom. And in sex therapy, we want to be prepared for the future.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, I think, uh, gl- global communication has certainly impacted us as a human race, right? In arguably good and bad ways, right? We see all these patterns you just very well detailed. Um, but then at the same time, especially in our Jewish community, because we're so scattered, this allows us to find each other, right? And to like connect in greater ways, like you and I, right? Like we don't live in the same state, but we've now connected because we have this shared connections, shared interests, shared experience. Um, and I think that's an amazing thing too, but it's like you're right. Where is there needs to be a tremendous amount of education, like to because anytime I've seen uh, couples things, especially in the Jewish world, and this could be my limited experience, but that like guys go with the men and then the women go with the women, and then you kind of come back to like figure it out. And it's like, I wonder, have you seen where there's uh, spaces for both men and women, husbands and wives, to come together and to kind of co-learn? Does that space exist?
I mean, I think the difference of like different ultra orthodox, modern modocs, and all of there's so many. And I think honestly, I'm a huge fan of just getting rid of as many labels as possible. I think it would do us a lot better to just identify as Jewish and you have your communities and like you have your levels. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of reformation I think that needs to happen. Um, I just couldn't not say that. I think it's really important for men and women to be learning together. I think that we're seeing a lot of the of Christian values actually seep their way into certain ultra orthodox thinking. And then it became like something completely like just interesting and different. Not It's very difficult to understand the level of fences that honestly seem to be backfiring, in my opinion. I will say something
Could,
positive,
could you
though.
give an example of like one you've seen that's backfired tremendously?
Yes. Well, in sex therapy, when I am speaking to newlyweds, and for 18 years, they were told, don't look at boys, don't think about boys, definitely don't touch boys. There's this flip that boys are wrong. There's something icky. It's not okay. It's not holy. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you just went on like several dates and now I'm going to throw you into this like intimate situation where now you need to have sex. How do you just all of a sudden unflip like, well, actually there is nothing wrong. You should absolutely be touching every inch of your partner's body and enjoying pleasure and enjoying each other. And that, yes, we need to pruervu and make babies, but you can also just simply enjoy being naked and exploring pleasure together. Um, so, like, it's just like, hold on, but I want to say a positive element as well.
Yes, yes.
I was just listening to a podcast where I was actually a lesbian um off the like it was a woman who was Hasidish and then she is now out and a lesbian, and she was dating
Hmm.
a woman who's a pelvic floor expert, and she said she does see Hasidic women who actually know so much about their bodies because like they're like getting pregnant so much, but they actually knew a lot about their anatomy and were very aware of their pleasure. So, like, there are always two sides to every story.
Hmm.
There's definitely some ultra Orthodox women who do take their pleasure seriously, and it's beautiful. But I think like we need to be aware of like the full spectrum in general. So, when a couple wants to learn, um, future forward understanding of monogamy, it would probably be like a cool thing to kind of see that like everyone's kind of struggling and for it to be more normal. I think that there's certain topics maybe that can still be separated, but a lot of things can be co-ed. And definitely in the more modern Orthodox and just traditional ways, I think that that's there. I
Oh,
was
that's wonderful. Yeah, that's incredible to know because I know uh, family members and friends. There's been barriers in the past, that they've felt as couples and things like that. So that's wonderful to know that people like you exist, right? In the Modocs world. That's so fun. I didn't know that concatenation existed now. That had to have come from New York, the home of Tribeca and Soho and um, Nolita, right? Like all these crazy things. Um, but I wanted to ask like a little pivot here, but a critical question is like, what do you think that Jewish communities should be paying more attention to psychologically right now? What should we be focusing on?
That's a wonderful question. Our mental well-being, we should be like meditating. We should all be slowing down and connecting to our body, hearing our soul. I think all of us have these tremendous soul gifts. Coming back to that tremendous soul light, we are all very intentionally here. We're in such a high level time. We are absolutely in the birth pangs of the Mashiach. It hasn't necessarily been easy for most of us. And just like returning back to who we really are, what we really are, requires quiet, requires a inner silence. Yes, we are going into the summer. Yes, it's a very outward external time. So yes, of course, people should be going outward and having fun community. So good. But also a lot more slowing down, internal, intentional time, silencing the mind in this extremely fast moving world. And I think that that's our best bet to be dealing with all of this future forward stuff that is incoming like hotcakes. We have to be in well regulated bodies. Not to say that we won't sometimes be totally unregulated. That's fair. That's true. That's happening. Even more so, I actually have a client of mine. He has ADHD, and he taught me this. He goes, as an ADHD person, he says, when I feel like I have no time to meditate, that's when I know I need to meditate so badly.
Oh, that's gold.
And for people who struggle with meditation, do deep breathing, do yoga, do qigong, whatever, like paint and be quiet, like just find your version of quieting the mind.
Love that. And that's you said hidbo dedut, right, is the wandering and the seeking, right? I love doing that. But hidbo nenut, right, which would be the deep thought. That's maybe what the silence you're talking about, right? Like be focused on these different aspects of ourselves. That's beautiful.
Well, I earlier I mentioned like the four elements: fire, water, earth, air. There's actually a fifth element that is
Oh,
silence.
ah,
And the ayin, the
the Ein
is
Sof.
the Ein Sof, the infinity. It does come from Ein. That there's that we like. Okay, when you want to build a new building, you have to first dig a hole
Mm,
for it to go into. So you have to have that moment. So like like if we want to build the future,
gotta
we
make
have to
space.
make space.
Love that. Okay, so we gotta clean our closets. Okay, that's good. Right, we gotta be silent and uh, be okay in that silence. Right, let what's echoing echo until it's gone, and hear what's new. Um,
And don't fight the suffering, ride the wave.
Ride the wave. There it is. That's another one of our gems. Um, so last thing I want to just kind of end on here because this has been wonderful. So happy we did this. Uh, if someone in our audience is feeling like stuck or disconnected or overwhelmed, you've mentioned some practices. Could we just like capture those, um, where they could like this week? What would be a good first step, like a good baby step this week to help them move towards like a more meaningful? I mean, of course, you got to know where they are, right? But like, what is it that someone could do if they have no connection, like nothing, and it's like they want to just put one fingertip into that world? What would that be?
They should book a session with Shely, but I'm joking, but not joking. Again, first and foremost, I would recommend for anyone to actually sit with yourself, actually do an exercise with yourself and see what your baby step is, because that's going to be your best bet. Now, from my experience, um, check in. I actually brought it in with your root system of like your kingdom. Your body is your inner kingdom. These are the four things of human 101. Okay. Check in. How's your nutrition? How are you eating? Like, meaning, like, do you know that like avocado is good for your brain? Like, how are you fueling your body? Number one. Number two, movement. How are you moving your body? I like to call it joyful movement, but like some sweating, some cardio, balance, kind of this mix, strength training. And then thirdly, mindfulness. Obviously, I'm a big fan of like silencing the mind. And fourth, guarding your thoughts and speech. If your mind is like a stomach, what are you like gobbling up? What are you watching, listening? Who are you listening to? Who are you surrounding yourself by? And how does that affect what comes out of your mouth? Okay, so those are the four. Okay, we don't want to change all four. We want to say, of those four, what are your, which one is your weakest? Okay, every person should think about it. If they feel like, wow, no, I'm like very scared of that one. I can't. Like maybe I've been struggling with, eating better for 20 years. Okay, so then what's your second weakest one? Mindful movement. I feel like that might be like a good idea. Okay, so now get that going because it's a root system. When you strengthen one, all four get strengthened. When you start moving a little bit better, all other areas or whatever one you choose. And then for some people, it will be like all the things they watch, what we are consuming in our mind, right? So pick one of the four and do better this week with one of those and see how that changes your functioning even just a little bit.
That's amazing and so valuable. So valuable, Shely. Thank you. Um, what are you getting into in the future that folks should look out for if they're interested in connecting with you and following you?
So I actually just put out 2 ebooks that is super future forward, talking about the redemption and the nervous system. And like what at Harsina, when we heard God's voice, we died, and then we came right back. So I have a whole theory of the nervous system expanding in order for us to receive expanded consciousness, and so that we don't die, but that we can actually live in a highly spiritual world and have our souls remain in our body. So I have my whole theory, and I have a workbook, the Aleph workbook, that helps us kind of start the conversation of how it might look like and how we can start prepping for our nervous system to expand, to hopefully get us to the place of expanded consciousness.
Love it. 2 books. You're such a show off.
Well, little e-guides. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Shely, thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom and your expertise and just being just real with us on all these great topics. Appreciate you.
Wow, I had such a great time. So nice talking with you. Always a pleasure to talk with artists. I feel like I gravitate towards artists, and your work is really, really fun and beautiful and creative and makes me think. So thank you also for your work.
Yeah. All right. Man, that's a serious endorsement. We'll see y'all next time. Thank you guys for joining Shely and I, and we will see you in the future. Bezrat Hashem. You have been listening to the Jewish Futurism Lab, a weekly independent production of Mike Wirth Art Incorporated. If you are into these conversations, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and drop a rating and a review so more folks can find the show. And to go deeper, hit up MikeWirthArt.com, MikeWirthArt.com, for more episodes, merch, original art, and essays. That is MikeWirthArt.com. And come hang with me on Instagram. I'm at Mike Wirth, MikeWirth. And if you are or know somebody who is a fascinating Jewish futurist who should be on this microphone with me here, slide into my DMs and tell me who I should talk to next. Until next time, friends, see you in the future.